For almost 2 weeks now, CNN's Chris Cuomo has been broadcasting from his basement as he battles the coronavirus. And if that weren't strange enough, his brother Andrew, the governor of New York, makes nightly appearances. It's clearly a conflict of interest, but as CNN has discovered, it's also a ratings bonanza. Adam Riley has more.
On March 31st, CNN's Cuomo Primetime had a different look and a very different feel.
I tested positive. Scary, yes, as you might imagine, but better me than you.
After announcing his coronavirus diagnosis on Twitter, Cuomo decided the show must go on. For the past week and a half, he's been broadcasting from his basement, critiquing the president, narrating his own recovery, and advising other people grappling with the disease.
You got to breathe deep when it hurts, and it hurts. I know it hurts.
But Cuomo has also been interviewing his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, something CNN hadn't let him do for the past 6 years. The exchanges can be tense.
You and the mayor have been cited in New York for catching on slowly here.
First thing I say to you is look in a mirror before you open your mouth, right?
But sometimes they're lighter.
I just say let it go. Just go with the flow, baby. You know, you can't control anything,
never
so
said
don't
any
even
of those
try.
things.
Either way, it's riveting TV. But as many critics have noted, it's also a massive conflict of interest.
With all of this adulation that you're getting for doing your job, are you thinking about running for president?
Also drawing scrutiny, Cuomo's decision to stay on air while sick, which has some of his own colleagues wincing.
I just need to say for the record, I think Anderson agree with me. We had suggested you not work right now.
But once you start watching, it's hard to look away.
I happen to agree with Adam. Dan Lothian, have you been watching? Is it hard to look away?
It is hard to look away. It's entertainment. And that's the reason CNN has gone back on their guidelines. As pointed out, they did not allow him to interview his brother. But they realized that in these times, this is something that's not only entertaining, but it's getting ratings, and it's a business at the end of the day. Personally, though, I feel that it is a conflict of interest. There have been, sometimes when you end up in situations like this, it can be a real conflict of interest. So you know that one brother is trying to help the other for political gain. Other times it's the appearance of it, right? So even if he isn't, there is no other motive to this than getting his brother on the air to give good information. As long as the public is sitting at home and saying, oh, well, when he was tough on him, they came up with this scheme so that it would come off as if he is, being a real reporter here, or when he is having fun with him, this is all about building up the personality of his brother to help him later to run for president. Even if there's just the appearance of that and the public believes that that's the case, I think that's wrong. It sends the wrong message. And I don't think that they should be interviewing each other, even though it's a smash hit.
So, John, as Dan alluded, back in 2013, Jeff Zucker, president of CNN, who was also, of course, the wonder boy behind the Today Show and many, many other programs, said, no more of this nonsense to Chris Cuomo. You're not going to be interviewing your brother on TV. Even I think he had just been elected at that time. I can't remember what the status of I think it was. Anyway, he said, that's not going to work. It's a conflict of interest. And I think he used those terms. And then when Chris got sick, he made an exception because the governor of New York had become, by then, halfway into that, a huge of national interest because of what's going on in New York City. And because he had such a powerful voice, because he was speaking to all of us in a way we wished our president was. So he made the exception, but something funny happened along the way. It became like a huge spectacle, and suddenly Jeff Zucker realized he's got a massive hit on his hands.
Emily, are you suggesting that Jeff Zucker compromised his ethical principles in pursuit of ratings? I am shocked to hear that you would suggest that. I mean, come on. In the first place, Chris Cuomo is not really a journalist.
No, he's not.
What he does is not journalism. It's infotainment. Let's get after it, right? Come on. And in the context of infotainment, I don't see how this is a conflict. As long as it's disclosed, I don't know, should they have a crawl underneath saying, by the way, these two guys are brothers? Just the sight of them tells you they're brothers. So I don't have a problem with it. I can see why it's getting good ratings. I'm watching the other night, and Chris Cuomo interviews Joe Biden. And a good chunk of the interview time was given to sloppy kisses back and forth, the references to, oh, how's your mom, and all sorts of family ties. That, again, signals to you this is not journalism.
No, it isn't. I have a little clip from one of the shows the other night. I mean, because a lot of it has been serious, but as you rightly point out, a lot of it has devolved, and fairly recently, into this kind of banter. Take a look.
My decision is, and as I posted today very early before anybody else responded to the call that you put out, I'm staying home for my mother because I love her, and at her age, she's uniquely vulnerable to the virus. Who are you staying home for? Because I'm staying home for my mom.
Yeah, the whole campaign is dedicated to my mother. And I said that first thing this morning when I posted my picture. I'm staying home for my mother. Oh, you're
staying at home for your mom, too. Isn't it weird, though, after I just said it?
No, I went first.
I mean, like, what? All right. Yeah, there you go, Dan.
You know, look, again, I think this is entertaining. I should say this, though. Chris Cuomo is a journalist. His show may not be, pure journalism, but he was doing the morning show at one point. He's a journalist. He sits down with newsmakers. He covers news stories. So I think that if you are a journalist and you move to another, hour, while the show itself may not be journalism, some of the ethical considerations around you as a journalist should follow you to wherever you go. And that's the reason I still feel that, given the appearance of this, as entertaining as it is, I think that they shouldn't be interviewing each other. But
Dan,
Zucker's going to do it.
He's an unabashed
Zucker
polemic. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's almost, Bill O'Reilly really started this genre, and successfully, that you can have an opinion and be a journalist. I'm not sure Jon Keller totally agrees, although, John, you're allowed to give your opinion. You're an opinion writer.
Right. Well, and look, Anderson Cooper, I think of as very much of a journalist, one of the best in the business. He's not afraid to express, I don't know if you'd call it an opinion, but to take a sharp edge and to make he makes commentary on his show. And they sort of try to separate it a little bit. But these lines have all been blurred for some time. I think when you tune into a cable network in prime time, you should know that you're going to get a mishmash here. It's not going to be the type of sort of conventional straight-on journalism that Dan is calling for.
But there's been some really harsh criticism. The New York Post did an op-ed that was really borderline vicious, ranking this. And Margaret Sullivan did some criticism as well as some others has. It's like it's like reading, not the funny pages, but, a soft feature, that the Washington Post is still carrying soft features. The New York Post still does as many sports stories as it can. It's just one of a variety of literally thousands of things that you can find across the cable spectrum at night. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, well, I don't see what the big deal is. And, the whole family connection and the banter about there, who mom liked best and all that stuff. First of all, it's an old joke. The Smothers Brothers were doing that 60 years ago. And at this time where family has taken on heightened meaning for many of us, I think it's kind of sweet. And I don't think many things are sweet.
The bottom line here is that CNN thought it was a big deal because they didn't allow it for a long period of time. Right. So if they thought it was OK, they wouldn't have prevented it in the first place. But now, they realize it's a hit. And you're right, Emily. Zucker will never pass up a good hit.
All right.
Even if he has to go back on his original rule.
Oh, nobody remembers that. OK. Dan Lothian, Jon Keller, thanks for joining us.